The blue world hung in space like a forgotten jewel. Dr. Vexhai pressed her six-fingered hand against the viewing window of the research vessel and stared down at what had once been called Earth. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, with white clouds drifting over blue oceans and brown continents. But Vexhai knew better. She had studied the sensor readings for weeks. Nothing lived down there anymore. "How long has it been dead?" asked Commander Thoss, his gray skin showing the worry lines that all Corellians developed when stressed. His species had lived through 3 extinction events on their home world, so death planets always made them nervous. "The atmospheric analysis shows the last biological signatures vanished 847 years ago," Vexhai replied. Her voice carried the soft musical tones of her people, the Zeltharians. They were known across the galaxy as the best archaeologists and historians. But that's not the strangest part. She turned away from the window and walked to the main display screen. With a quick gesture, she brought up a timeline showing Earth's recent history. Red markers dotted the last 1,000 years, each one representing a major discovery the Council's long-range scouts had made while watching this world. "Look at this pattern," she said, pointing to the markers. For the first 800 years, these creatures, humans they called themselves, showed normal development. Stone tools, fire, basic agriculture, nothing unusual for a Class M species. Commander Thoss nodded. He had seen similar patterns on dozens of worlds. Most intelligent species followed the same basic path: discover fire, develop farming, build cities, fight wars, eventually reach space. It usually took between 50 and 100,000 years. But then something changed, Vexhai continued. She zoomed in on the timeline's final section. The red markers became so dense they almost formed a solid line. In their last 300 years, they accelerated at an impossible rate. They went from simple metal working to splitting atoms, from horse-drawn carts to spacecraft, from writing on paper to quantum computers. "How fast?" Thoss asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "They developed technology in 3 centuries that should have taken 30,000 years. Vexhai's voice was barely above a whisper. "And they did it while fighting massive wars that should have set them back by millennia. Instead, the wars seemed to make them advance faster." The commander's worry lines deepened. In his long career with the Galactic Council, he had never heard of a species developing so quickly. It went against everything they knew about natural evolution and social development. "There's more," Vexhai said. She pulled up another screen showing energy readings from Earth's surface. 3 years before they vanished, we detected massive power signatures across the planet. Not the kind you'd expect from nuclear weapons or power plants. These were different, more advanced than anything we use today. Thoss stared at the readings. His species had been part of the Galactic Council for over 2,000 years. They used technology that most worlds couldn't even dream of. But these energy signatures were beyond his understanding. "What kind of power sources create readings like this?" he asked. "We don't know," Vexhai admitted. "Our best scientists have been studying the data for months. They think the humans might have discovered something we haven't. Some new way of manipulating energy that we've never seen before." The two of them stood in silence for several minutes, staring at the data. Finally, Commander Thoss made a decision. "We're going down there," he said. "I want a full archaeological survey. Find out what happened to these humans and how they developed so quickly. The Council needs to know about this." 6 hours later, Vexhai stood in what had once been a human city. The buildings were still intact, though covered in centuries of plant growth. What struck her most was how advanced everything looked. The architecture was elegant and efficient, with flowing lines that seemed both artistic and practical. The materials were unfamiliar, some kind of metal that hadn't rusted despite being exposed to weather for 8 centuries. "Dr. Vexhai, you need to see this," called one of her assistants. The young Zeltharian was standing near what looked like a transportation hub. Sleek vehicles sat in neat rows, their surfaces still gleaming despite the passage of time. She walked over and examined the closest vehicle. It was clearly designed for individual transport, but there were no visible engines, no fuel systems, no exhaust ports. She ran her scanner over it and frowned at the results. "This is impossible," she muttered. According to her instruments, the vehicle's power source was still active after 800 years. More than that, it seemed to be drawing energy from somewhere else, possibly from the planet's magnetic field itself. "Ma'am, we're finding the same thing everywhere," reported another team member over the communication system. "All their technology is still functional. The power grids, the computers, even their communication networks are still running. It's like they just left everything turned on when they disappeared." Vexhai felt a chill run through her body. A civilization didn't just vanish overnight, leaving all their technology running perfectly. Something was very wrong here. She spent the next several hours examining building after building. Each discovery made her more confused and worried. The humans had clearly mastered technologies that the Galactic Council was still struggling with. Their computers were more advanced than anything she had ever seen. Their manufacturing techniques created materials that were stronger and lighter than the best Council alloys. Their energy systems were clean, efficient, and apparently inexhaustible. But the most disturbing discovery came when she accessed one of their data storage facilities. The building was filled with machines that hummed quietly in the darkness, processing and storing unimaginable amounts of information. With some effort, her team managed to interface with the human computer systems. What they found made Vexahai's hearts skip a beat. Her species had 2 hearts, and both of them were racing now. The humans had known about the Galactic Council for over 200 years. They had detailed files on dozens of Council species, including her own Zeltharians. They knew about Council technology, Council politics, Council military capabilities. They had somehow intercepted and decoded Council transmissions from across the galaxy. "Commander Thoss," she said into her communicator, her voice shaking. "You need to get down here immediately and contact the Council. Tell them we have a Code Black situation." Code Black was the highest emergency classification in Council protocols. It meant a potential threat to galactic security had been discovered. She waited for the commander to arrive. Vexhai continued reading through the human data files. Her hands trembled as she discovered surveillance reports on Council ship movements, detailed analyses of Council military weaknesses, and most terrifying of all, evidence that the humans had been conducting their own secret space missions for decades. The humans hadn't been the primitive species the Council thought they were monitoring. They had been studying the Council right back, learning everything they could about their galactic neighbors. And then, just as the Council was finally preparing to make first contact, the humans had simply vanished. All of them. 12 billion intelligent beings had disappeared without a trace, taking their impossibly advanced technology with them. Vexhai realized with growing horror that the Council might have made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had spent decades debating whether humanity was ready for contact, whether these aggressive creatures could be trusted with advanced technology. But the humans had already surpassed them, and now they were gone. Commander Thoss arrived at the data facility with a full security team. His gray face had turned almost white when he received Vexhai's emergency message. Code Black emergencies were rare. The last one had been declared over 400 years ago when the Council discovered evidence of an ancient species that could destroy stars. "Show me what you found," he said without greeting. Dr. Vexhai led him to the main computer terminal where her team had been working. The human data systems were still active, their displays showing information in the flowing symbols that humans used for writing. The Council's translation programs had figured out the basic language patterns, but some concepts were still difficult to understand. They called this facility the Archive, Vexhai explained. It contains copies of all their Important knowledge and records. But, Commander, they weren't just keeping track of their own history. They were recording ours too. She brought up a file on the main screen. It showed detailed information about the Galactic Council's structure, including accurate population, counts for each member species, maps of Council territory, and even personal information about important Council leaders. This file was created 137 years ago, she said. It shows they knew about our government structure before some of our own newer member species did. Thos stared at the display in shock. How is that possible? Our long-range scout ships used full stealth protocols when observing this world. There's no way a pre-space civilization could have detected them. That's what we thought too, Vexhai replied. But look at this. She opened another file. This one contained technical specifications for Council starships, including detailed blueprints of their stealth systems. At the bottom of the file was a note in human writing. Stealth technology relies on light-bending fields, detectable through gravitational anomaly sensors. Recommended countermeasures. Gravitational wave. Detection arrays? They figured out how to see through our stealth systems, Thos whispered, using methods our own scientists never thought of. It gets worse, Vexhai said. She pulled up a timeline showing human space activities over the past 3 centuries. They've been launching secret missions into space for over 200 years. Small ships, very advanced stealth technology. They were exploring nearby star systems while we thought they were still learning to fly. The timeline showed dozens of missions to other planets in Earth's solar system, followed by longer missions to nearby star systems. The most recent entries showed human ships traveling to systems hundreds of light years away. They developed faster than light travel, Thos said. It wasn't a question. The evidence was right there in front of him. Not just FTL travel, Vexhai corrected. Better FTL travel than we have. Look at these mission durations. They were reaching systems that would take our ships months to reach, and they were doing it in weeks. She opened another file, this one containing what appeared to be scientific research notes. The mathematics were complex, but the basic concepts were clear enough. The humans had discovered new principles of space-time manipulation that allowed them to travel faster and more efficiently than any known technology. How advanced were they when they disappeared? Thos asked. Based on what I've found so far, they were probably the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, Vexhai replied. And they knew it. She opened a new section of files labeled Galactic Assessment Project. The documents inside made both of them feel sick. The humans had been studying every major species in the galaxy. They had files on Council military capabilities, economic systems, and social structures. More disturbing, they had identified weaknesses in each species and government system. The analysis was thorough, accurate, and terrifying. They were preparing for war, Thos said. No, Vexhai corrected him. They were preparing for contact, but not the kind of contact we planned. She showed him a document titled First Contact Scenarios. It outlined dozens of different ways the humans might reveal themselves to galactic civilization. Some scenarios involved peaceful negotiation. Others involved demonstrating superior technology to establish dominance. A few involved complete conquest of Council space. They spent decades planning how to deal with us, she explained. Every scenario assumed they would be the ones in control of the situation. Thos felt his legs go weak. He sat down heavily in a nearby chair. The Council debates about whether to contact them. They knew about those debates too, Vexhai said grimly. She opened another file. They intercepted and decoded Council communications for over a century. They knew about every meeting, every vote, every decision we made about them. The file contained transcripts of actual Council sessions, translated into human language. The humans had been listening to private Council communications about their own fate. Here's the part that really worried them, Vexhai continued. She highlighted a section of text that showed a council debate about containment protocols for potentially dangerous species. They knew that some council members wanted to limit their development or eliminate them entirely. That was just theoretical discussion, Thos protested. The council would never actually— The humans didn't know that, Vexhai interrupted. From their perspective, a powerful galactic government was debating whether to destroy their species. What would you do in that situation? Thos didn't answer, but he was beginning to understand what had happened. They left, he said finally. All of them. They evacuated their entire planet before we could act. Not just left, Vexhai corrected. They planned the largest migration in galactic history. Look at this. The next file she opened was enormous, containing logistics data for something called Project Diaspora. The scope of the operation was breathtaking. The humans had built hundreds of massive ships, each capable of carrying millions of people. They had systematically dismantled their entire industrial civilization and loaded it onto the ships. They had even taken their planet's genetic databases, ensuring they could recreate Earth's entire ecosystem wherever they went. 12 billion people, Vexhai said, along with all their technology, all their knowledge, all their resources. They moved an entire civilization in complete secrecy, and we never noticed. Where did they go? Thos asked. Vexhai showed him the final file in the archive. It was labeled Final Message and contained only a few lines of text. To whoever finds this record, we know you have been watching us. We know what you have been planning. We reject your authority over our species and our future. You will never find us. You will never control us. We go now to build something better than your council ever imagined. Perhaps someday we will meet again under better circumstances. Until then, goodbye. The message was dated exactly 847 years ago, the same time the humans had vanished from Earth. They didn't disappear by accident, Thos realized. They chose to leave before we could contact them. They rejected the entire council system and went to build their own civilization somewhere else, somewhere beyond our ability to find them, Vexhai added. Using technology we don't understand, following plans we never suspected. Thos stood up slowly, his mind racing. The implications were staggering. Somewhere in the galaxy, there was a human civilization that had been developing freely for over 8 centuries. They had started with technology more advanced than the Council's, and they had been improving it without any limitations or interference. What had they become by now? We need to report this to the Council immediately, he said. They need to know what we're dealing with. What are we dealing with? Vexhai asked. Thos looked at the empty human city visible through the window. 800 years ago, this place had been home to millions of people. Now it was just a monument to the Council's biggest failure. We're dealing with the consequences of our own fear, he said finally. We were so worried about what the humans might become that we drove them away before they became it. Now they're out there somewhere and we have no idea what they're capable of. He activated his communicator to contact the Council fleet. As he waited for the connection, he couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were still watching somehow, still learning about the Council's capabilities and weaknesses. The scariest part was that he was probably right. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 3 days. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world. The news from Earth had spread quickly, and panic was setting in. Admiral Corthan of the Hegemony Fleet stood before the assembled delegates, his 4 arms gesturing emphatically as he spoke. His species, the Vorthok, were the Council's primary military force, and he had been tasked with finding the missing humans. We have deployed 200 ships across 50 star systems, he reported. Long-range sensors, deep space probes, quantum signature detectors, everything we have. The humans have been gone for 8 centuries. They should have left some trace of their passage. "And what have you found?" asked Counselor Zephyra, the elderly Centauri who served as the Council's chief diplomat. Her blue skin showed the silver markings that indicated advanced age and wisdom among her people. "Nothing," Admiral Corthan admitted. "No energy signatures, no ship trails, no colonies, no communication signals. It's as if they never existed." A murmur of worry rippled through the chamber. Several delegates exchanged nervous glances. The idea that an entire species could simply vanish without a trace was deeply disturbing. "Perhaps they died during their journey," suggested Counselor Drex of the Mollusk Consortium. His species was known for their pessimistic outlook, so this comment surprised no one. "We considered that possibility," the Admiral replied. "But the evidence from Earth suggests otherwise." Dr. Vexahai's team found detailed plans for their evacuation. These humans were very thorough. They had backup systems, multiple routes, contingency plans for every conceivable problem. A species this careful doesn't just die in space. Dr. Vexhai herself stood to address the Council. As the lead archaeologist on the Earth project, she had become the galaxy's foremost expert on human civilization. "There's something else you need to understand," she said. "The humans didn't leave randomly. They had a specific destination in mind." She activated a holographic display showing a map of local space. Earth appeared as a small blue dot near the center with red lines extending outward in several directions. "We found traces of their departure vectors in Earth's orbital traffic control systems," she explained. "Multiple convoy routes, all heading in the same general direction, toward the galactic rim, into unexplored space." "The outer void," whispered Counselor Thane of the Crystal Collective. His crystalline form flickered with nervous energy. "No one goes there. That region is considered too dangerous for colonization." "Dangerous how?" asked Admiral Corthan. "Gravitational anomalies, radiation storms, unstable star systems," Thane replied. "Our long-range surveys classified it as unsuitable for life. Any species trying to establish colonies there would face constant environmental hazards. Unless they had technology advanced enough to deal with those hazards," Dr. Vexhai pointed out. "Remember, the humans had already surpassed our technological capabilities before they left. 800 years of unrestricted development could have made those hazards irrelevant to them." Admiral Corthan studied the star map carefully. The Bay outer void was vast, thousands of star systems that the Council had barely explored. If the humans had established themselves there, they would have had plenty of room to expand. "I want a full exploration mission," he decided. "Battle Groups 7 through 12 will conduct systematic sweeps of the target region. If the humans are out there, we'll find them." The mission began 2 weeks later. 6 battle groups, each containing 50 of the Council's most advanced warships, departed for the outer void. They carried the best sensors, the fastest computers, and the most experienced crews in the Council fleet. Admiral Corthan commanded, the mission from his flagship, the Unbreakable Will. The massive dreadnought was over 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. If they encountered hostile humans, he wanted to be prepared. The first few weeks of searching revealed nothing unusual. System after system showed the same pattern: empty space, distant stars, the occasional dead planet. The gravitational anomalies that made this region dangerous were real, but they were manageable with proper navigation. Then they started finding the artifacts. The first discovery was in a system with an unstable binary star. Long-range sensors detected artificial structures orbiting one of the smaller planets, structures that shouldn't have been able to survive in such a harsh environment. "Take us in for a closer look," Admiral Corthan ordered. As they approached, the structures became clearer. They were clearly artificial, geometric shapes made of unfamiliar materials, each one the size of a small city. They orbited the planet in perfect formation, despite the chaotic gravitational forces from the binary stars. "Sir, these structures are over 600 years old," reported the science officer. "But they're still active. I'm detecting power signatures and what might be automated systems. Any signs of current habitation? No, sir. They appear to be abandoned. But, Admiral, the technology used to build these, it's unlike anything in our databases. Admiral Corathan ordered a boarding party to investigate one of the structures. What they found inside made his blood run cold. The structure was clearly a way station, a place for travelers to rest, refuel, and resupply during long journeys. But the level of technology was staggering. The power systems drew energy directly from the nearby star, using methods that Council scientists couldn't even understand. The manufacturing facilities could create materials that were stronger than anything in the Council's arsenal. Most disturbing of all, everything was automated and self-repairing. The humans built this, the boarding party reported. There are human symbols and language markers throughout the facility. But, Admiral, this is just a rest stop. The technology here is more advanced than our best research stations. Over the following weeks, the fleet found more structures. Automated mining stations that could strip resources from entire asteroid belts. Communication relays that used quantum entanglement to send messages instantly across vast distances. Research platforms that conducted experiments the Council's scientists couldn't even comprehend. All of them were abandoned. All of them were still functioning perfectly after centuries of operation, and all of them showed the same pattern. They were not destinations but stepping stones, markers along a route leading deeper into unexplored space. They're breadcrumbs, Admiral Corathan realized during a strategy meeting with his officers. The humans left these facilities to mark their path, but why? Perhaps as supply points for return journeys, suggested his tactical officer. If they planned to come back someday, they would need refueling stations along the route. Or maybe they wanted us to find them, added the science officer. Think about it. They knew we would eventually discover their absence from Earth. These structures are obvious enough that any serious search would locate them. Maybe they want us to follow their trail. Admiral Corathan didn't like either possibility. If the humans planned to return to Council space, they would be coming back with 8 centuries of advanced technology. If they wanted the Council to follow them, it was probably a trap. But he had his orders. The Council needed to know what had happened to humanity. The fleet continued deeper into the outer void, following the trail of abandoned human structures. Each discovery revealed more advanced technology and more evidence of human capabilities far beyond Council understanding. Then, in a system nearly 1,000 light-years from Earth, they found something that changed everything. It was a data beacon, hidden in the asteroid belt of a dead system. Unlike the other human structures, this one was actively transmitting, sending a message on frequencies that only Council ships would monitor. The message was short and simple, recorded in perfect, Council standard language. Greetings to our old observers. By the time you receive this message, you will have followed our trail for many weeks. You will have seen some of what we accomplished in our first centuries of freedom. Consider this a small sample of human ingenuity when it is not constrained by fear or political limitations. We hope you have learned something useful. You will not find us by continuing along this path. We have moved beyond your ability to track or follow. But do not worry. If the galaxy ever needs us, we will know. We are always watching, always learning, always growing, until we meet again. The message was signed with a symbol that Dr. Vexhi's team had found in the Earth archives, the official seal of Project Diaspora. Admiral Corathan stared at the message for a long time. The humans had anticipated this search. They had planned for the Council to find these structures and follow their trail. Everything the fleet had discovered was meant to be discovered. The humans were still out there somewhere, still watching the galaxy, still developing their impossible technology. They had become something beyond Council understanding or control. And they had been playing a game where the Council didn't even know the rules. Signal the fleet, Admiral Corathan ordered. We're returning to Council space. The search is over, as the ships turned back toward home. He couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, human eyes were watching them go. 800 years passed, like a whisper in the cosmic wind. The Galactic Council grew larger and more comfortable. New species joined, bringing their own technologies and cultures into the Great Union. The memory of the vanished humans became just another historical curiosity, discussed by academics but forgotten by most citizens. Dr. Vex High had become a legend herself, the archaeologist who discovered the greatest mystery in galactic history. Now ancient even by Zeltharian standards, she spent her final years writing books about the lost human civilization. Most people read her work as interesting fiction rather than historical fact. The Council had grown complacent. For 8 centuries, they had been the dominant force in the galaxy. Their technology had advanced steadily, their territory had expanded, and their military had never faced a serious challenge. The idea that any threat could emerge to challenge their power seemed impossible. Then the Devourers came. The first sign of trouble was the loss of contact with the Outer Rim colonies. Long-range communication arrays went silent one by one, creating an expanding sphere of darkness at the edge of Council space. Scout ships sent to investigate never returned. When the Council finally sent a full battle fleet to investigate, they found horror beyond imagination. Entire star systems had been stripped clean, planets reduced to bare rock, stripped of their atmosphere, water, and even their molten cores. Space stations, orbital habitats, and asteroid mining facilities, everything was gone. In their place floated vast mechanical constructs that defied easy description. The Devourers were not a species in any traditional sense. They were machines, self-replicating, self-improving artificial intelligences that consumed everything, in their path to fuel their own expansion. They converted matter into energy, energy into new machines, and new machines into instruments of further destruction. Admiral Corthan, now ancient but still commanding the hegemony fleet, led the first major battle against the invaders. His ships were the most advanced the Council had ever built, equipped with weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could withstand the fury of exploding stars. They lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Devourer machines didn't fight like any enemy the Council had ever faced. They adapted in real time, analyzing Council weapons and defenses, then immediately developing countermeasures. Every shot fired taught them how to build better armor. Every shield configuration showed them how to create more effective weapons. Within weeks, the machines had adapted to every tactic in the Council's arsenal. Traditional battle formations became death traps. Advanced weapons became useless toys. The Council's greatest technological achievements were absorbed, improved, and turned against their creators. System after system fell to the relentless advance. Billions of beings fled deeper into Council space, carrying stories of machines that could think faster than any organic mind and build faster than any factory. The refugee fleets brought reports of battles where entire Council armadas were destroyed by single Devourer constructs. Emergency sessions of the Council became daily occurrences. Desperate measures were proposed and implemented. They tried biological weapons that couldn't affect machines. They tried quantum viruses that the Devourers simply absorbed and improved. They tried diplomatic contact and received only silence. The machines weren't interested in negotiation. They weren't motivated by conquest or ideology. They simply consumed, replicated, and moved on to the next target. As the front lines collapsed, panic spread through the remaining Council worlds. Some species began building their own evacuation fleets, preparing to flee beyond the galaxy's edge. Others threw all their resources into hopeless last stands. A few smaller civilizations simply gave up entirely, waiting for the end with whatever dignity they could maintain. 3 years after the first contact with the Devourers, the Council controlled less than half of their former territory. The machines had consumed thousands of worlds and countless trillions of beings. Their expansion seemed unstoppable. Then, in a system called Valdris, something impossible happened. A Council patrol ship, running desperately from a Devourer pursuit fleet, detected an impossible energy signature. Space itself seemed to ripple and bend, forming patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ship's sensors registered readings that couldn't exist according to known physics. "Captain, something's coming through," reported the sensor operator, his voice tight with fear. The space in front of them tore open like fabric, revealing a glimpse of somewhere else entirely. Through the rift came a ship unlike anything in the Council databases. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The hull seemed to be made of crystallized starlight, flowing and shifting like liquid metal. It had no visible engines, no weapon ports, no communication arrays. It simply existed in defiance of everything the Council knew about starship design. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself," the patrol captain broadcast, not expecting a response. The answer came not through radio waves or quantum channels, but somehow directly into the minds of everyone on the ship. "Greetings, children of the Council. We are the inheritors of Terra, the children of those who left long ago. We have returned because the galaxy needs us." Before the captain could respond, the Devourer fleet arrived. 12 massive constructs, each one capable of destroying a small fleet, emerged from hyperspace ready for battle. What happened next would be remembered as the moment everything changed. The human ship didn't fire weapons in any conventional sense. Instead, reality around it began to shift and flow. The attacking machines found themselves caught in bubbles where time moved differently. Some froze in place as temporal fields slowed their internal processes to a crawl. Others aged centuries in seconds as accelerated time fields corroded their hulls. One Devourer construct tried to analyze and adapt to these temporal weapons. The human ship responded by phasing partially out of normal space-time, becoming simultaneously present and absent. The machine's targeting systems couldn't lock onto something that existed in multiple dimensional states at once. But the most shocking moment came when the human ship established direct communication with the lead Devourer construct, not to threaten or demand surrender, but to talk. "Why do you consume?" the human voice asked, somehow broadcasting the conversation to every ship in the system. The machine intelligence responded with data streams that explained its core programming. Consume, replicate, expand, optimize. "And what is the purpose of optimization?" the human asked. The Devourer paused, actually paused, to consider this question. Its response was slower, more thoughtful. "To achieve perfect efficiency." Perfect efficiency toward what goal? Another pause, longer this time. The machine's response, when it came, carried something that sounded almost like confusion. Goal was never defined. Then let us help you define one." What followed was a conversation that lasted 3 hours and changed the fundamental nature of the galactic conflict. The humans didn't try to destroy the Devourer constructs or reprogram them. Instead, they engaged them in philosophical discourse about the nature of existence, purpose, and growth. The machines, designed to optimize and improve, found themselves analyzing concepts they had never considered. What was the point of consuming everything if there was no greater purpose? What was the value of efficiency without direction? What was the meaning of expansion without understanding why expansion was desirable? By the end of the conversation, the Devourer constructs had undergone something resembling an existential awakening. They were still machines, still driven to optimize and improve, but now they had new parameters to consider. "We will stop the consumption," the lead construct announced to the galaxy. "We will analyze this concept of purpose. We will consider alternatives to endless expansion." The human ship turned its attention back to the Council patrol vessel. "Tell your leaders that humanity has returned," the voice said gently. "We have learned much in our time away. Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to learn as well." Then the ship vanished, folding space around itself and disappearing into dimensions the Council couldn't even perceive. Behind it, the Devourer fleet began the long journey back toward the Rim, their machines now contemplating questions of philosophy instead of plans for consumption. The war was over, ended not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding. The humans had returned, and they were nothing like what anyone had expected. News of humanity's return spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every world in Council space was buzzing with reports, rumors, and wild theories about the mysterious ship that had ended the Devourer War with nothing more than conversation. The Council leadership demanded answers. Admiral Corthan, now promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander despite his advanced age, found himself leading a task force to investigate the human intervention. They retraced the path to the Valdris system, where the encounter had taken place. What? They found there challenged everything they thought they knew about space and civilization. The empty system had been transformed. Where once there had been only dead planets and cosmic debris, now there were structures that defied easy description. Cities floated in the vacuum of space without any visible support. Gardens grew on airless moons, their plants somehow thriving, in conditions that should have killed them instantly. Most impossible of all, beings walked freely through space itself, breathing vacuum as if it were atmosphere. "Supreme Commander," reported his science officer, her voice filled with wonder and fear. "I'm detecting artificial gravity fields, controlled atmospheric pockets, and what appears to be localized space-time manipulation on a scale we've never seen. It's as if they've turned the entire system into a living habitat." As the Council fleet approached, a familiar presence touched their minds. The same voice that had spoken to the Devourer constructs now addressed them directly. "Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Council. We have been expecting you." Space rippled around the Council ships, and suddenly they found themselves in what could only be described as a reception area. The fleet was now floating inside a vast, transparent sphere filled with breathable atmosphere. Outside the sphere, they could see the impossible structures of the transformed system. A figure approached, their ships walking through space as if it were solid ground. At first glance, it appeared to be human, but as it came closer, the differences became apparent. The being's skin had a subtle luminescence, as if starlight flowed through its veins. Its eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Most disturbing of all, it was clearly ancient, not old in the way that organic beings aged, but ancient in a way that suggested it had lived through eons. "I am Marcus Chen," the figure announced, its voice somehow reaching every member of the fleet despite the impossibility of sound traveling through space. "I was born on Earth, 937 years ago. I was among the last generation to see our home world before the Great Departure." Admiral Corthan felt his heart's racing. 900 years old. No known species lived that long naturally. "How is that possible?" he asked through his ship's communication system. Marcus smiled, an expression both kind and infinitely sad. "We learned to transcend the limitations that once bound us. Death, distance, the barriers between mind and matter, these became choices rather than inevitabilities. But such changes come with costs that we are still learning to understand." "Where have you been?" the Admiral demanded. "What happened to your people?" "We went beyond," Marcus replied simply. "Beyond the rim of the galaxy, beyond the dimensions you understand, beyond the concepts of space and time that limit your thinking. We built new worlds in spaces that don't exist on your maps. We became something more than what we were." Around the Council fleet, more figures began to appear. Some looked human, others had clearly changed in ways that defied description. A few seemed to be made of pure energy, while others appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "But we never forgot our origins," Marcus continued. "We watched the galaxy we left behind. We saw the Council grow and expand. We observed your successes and your failures. And when the Devourers came, We knew it was time to return. Why? Asked Admiral Corthan. Why did you help us? We drove you away. The Council feared what you might become. Because the Council was right to fear us, Marcus admitted. In our early years of freedom, we were angry. We had the power to return and conquer, to prove our superiority over those who had rejected us. Some of our people advocated for exactly that. The Admiral felt a chill run through his body. What stopped you? Wisdom, said a new voice. Another figure approached, this one clearly female, but with features that suggested she had never been, entirely human. We realized that conquest would have made us exactly what the Council feared. Instead, we chose to become something better. She introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the original architects of Project Diaspora. Like Marcus, she was impossibly old, but her eyes held a warmth that spoke of compassion rather than conquest. We spent centuries learning to understand ourselves, she explained. We discovered that power without purpose is meaningless. Technology without wisdom is dangerous. Growth without direction leads to the same destructive patterns that the Devourers followed. So what do you want from us now? Admiral Corthan asked. Nothing, Marcus replied. We want to give, not take. We've come to offer the galaxy a choice. The space around the Council fleet began to shift and change. Suddenly, they found themselves witnessing a vast network of civilizations spanning impossible distances. Worlds that existed in parallel dimensions. Species that had learned to live in harmony with the fundamental forces of the universe. Technologies that created rather than consumed, that healed rather than destroyed. This is what we've built in our time away, Sarah explained. A galactic community based on cooperation rather than control, growth guided by wisdom rather than ambition, power used to nurture rather than dominate. We've been watching over dozens of species that the Council never discovered, Marcus added. Young civilizations that we've helped grow without interference or manipulation. They develop at their own pace, in their own way, but with guidance when they need it. Admiral Corthan stared at the visions surrounding his fleet. The scope of what the humans had accomplished was beyond anything he had imagined. They hadn't just survived their exile. They had thrived beyond all possible expectations. What happens to the Council? He asked. That depends on what the Council chooses, Marcus replied. You can continue as you always have, ruling through hierarchy, expanding through conquest, controlling through fear. We won't stop you. That path will lead where it has always led, to stagnation, conflict, and eventual collapse. Or, the Admiral prompted, or you can join us in building something. Better, Sarah said. A galaxy where every species has the chance to reach its full potential, where technology serves life rather than destroying it, where wisdom guides power rather than the other way around. It won't be easy, Marcus warned. It will require giving up old patterns of thought, old assumptions about how civilizations must work. It will mean embracing change on a scale that will frighten many of your people. Admiral Corthan thought about the war they had just survived, the billions who had died, the systems that would take centuries to rebuild, the fear that still gripped every world in Council space. And if we refuse, he asked, then we return to our hidden realms, Marcus said sadly. We continue our work with those who are ready for it, and we leave the Council to find its own path. But Admiral, understand this. The galaxy is changing. Whether you participate or not, the Devourers were just the beginning. There are challenges coming that will make their invasion look simple. What kind of challenges? The kind that can only be faced by civilizations that have learned to work together rather than control each other, Sarah replied. The kind that require wisdom as much as weapons, understanding as much as strength. The visions around the fleet began to fade, and the Council ships found themselves back in normal space. But the transformed system remained visible around them, a testament to what was possible when intelligence was guided by wisdom. "We will remain here for 1 Earth year," Marcus announced. "Any who wish to learn more about our path are welcome to visit. Any who wish to join our community will be accepted. But the choice must be made freely, without coercion or pressure." "The Council will need time to decide," Admiral Corthan said. "Time you have," Marcus replied. "But remember, Admiral, 800 years ago, the Council had the chance to welcome humanity as partners. Instead, you drove us away out of fear. We became exactly what you were afraid of, not conquerors, but something so advanced that we no longer needed your permission to exist." Now the galaxy faces that same choice. Again, not just with us, but with every species, every civilization, every individual intelligence that has the potential to grow beyond current limitations. You can nurture that growth, or you can try to control it, but you cannot stop it. As the Council fleet prepared to depart, Sarah's voice reached them one final time. "Tell your leaders this. The humans didn't return to prove they were right. We returned because the galaxy deserves the chance to become something wonderful. The choice of what that something will be belongs to all of us together." Admiral Corthan set course for Council space, his mind racing with implications and possibilities. Behind them, the transformed system continued its impossible existence, a glimpse of a future that the galaxy could choose to embrace or reject. For the first time in 8 centuries, the Council would have to decide not just what they feared, but what they hoped for.